Kind of application for getting the event model done for the time tracking, but without all the extra notes. So let me just hide some of these things, share my screen. Okay, so as you recall, this is our larger event model, and I think we just want to get to a couple of places of just creating invoices from getting some of these screens in here in terms of your time management. So without all of this, how do you start with a clean event model and move to implementation? So just zoom out. We have quite a lot of stuff on here. Yeah. Good thing I added more memory to this computer. So this is our main little example, and we'll start to look at this again from scratch and see what we can do from a beginner's perspective. I guess I'll just put it up here. We haven't. Oh, I guess this one moved over from. It's one of our swim lanes. Belongs somewhere down here. There we go. Like that. I'm not sure if that's where it belongs, but it belongs in this general area, I think. So we could do a very simple one. I think we'll start with maybe a time tracking, Trello board example, where it's just one user, your own data, you're just doing your own to-do list, and then we'll move from there to where we have some multiple, person administration from or continue on with our time tracking. But I want to do it from this beginner level. So let's and when you're ready, Krzysztof, just let me know and I'll let you do that while I work on some of this stuff, and together we'll once you're done, we'll continue on with this one. So you can probably share now your co-host. Oops, what did I do? I moved to a different desktop. There we go. Okay. So if we want to make a to-do list, the first thing that we will have is a blank screen where most people that are starting to do some programming will want to make that something that's like that. And of course, our to-do list is simple. We have a couple of areas on here that are columns, and they are simply to do and done, as we have in my shell example. If you haven't seen that yet, I've done this within a shell just for fun. Oh boy, is this too large again? No, it's just a very small font, 14. I'm thinking that we just make everything smaller. Yeah, 181 is ridiculous. Let's just make things smaller. My to-do list is going to be smaller. And my done column is going to be smaller as well. And I'm not going to use anything fancy like the add-ins for buttons and UI. People can if they want, but I want this to be a little bit more approachable for people with other tools besides Miro or anything else. And that's still very tiny. To do. And so I will make this even smaller. All right, so the first part in our event model is our starting screen, which is blank at the beginning. This is a nice thing about being able to visualize the realities of what we want, is to manifest it via an event model. I guess this is kind of like people that do goal setting and those kinds of personal improvement exercises. Event modeling is kind of the same in that you kind of you have your dream board or whatever on your fridge. I want this to be the system at the end of the year, and so that's kind of what we would like to have. So I have a couple of choices here for our to-do list. We could support drag and drop, which I think we might not want to do at the first iteration. Just put in traditional buttons to make it a little bit easier, not get lost in a sea of JavaScript and HTML5 goodness that's recent, relatively speaking. So what we would do is add some buttons here. For example, I would have add new item. Add new, maybe that's good enough. And then of course we'll center it because it's more of a button, and we'll make it blue since we kind of like that convention of having blue buttons doing new things. All right, so we start off with literally nothing. And so our first idea here is to say, well, I want to something like create to do item, and maybe we'll have a text. Well, that's not what happens yet, right? So we kind of start with this, and we have a little area to add new things in, which is over here, and that's like a little text box, and it just sits there. Yeah, I'm not gonna win any prizes for UX or anything like that at this moment, but we can sort of see how this will work. And we can be quite explicit. That's one of the first things that we want to do is type some text in there. So this is our default page, and we can tell the story of what's going on by saying, oh, the first thing I do is type some stuff in here, which is buy bread. I'll make that left and just make it a little bit larger. There we go. You can add that new item there. So if you want to make this a mobile app, you should be able to follow the same thing. The idea is from, I'll just show you the Hanselman talk that I have. I'm just going to make sure I can share my screen. So Hanselman, I think that's show us. It's a recent one. And nope, that's not it. It might be the most recent one. Overwhelmed. Yeah, this is the one where I guess people can't hear that, right? You can raise your hand if you can hear it or not, or vote yes or no. If you can't hear it, we'll make sure to add so a little bit of background for where I got the idea for today's session. All right. Share computer sound. Okay, there we go. So now you should be able to hear.
In this very special episode of
It's a little quiet.
Computer Things They Didn't Teach You, we'll take some viewer mail and we'll talk about something that maybe is a little less technical, but still, in my opinion, is something that they don't really teach you. I got a really nice message on my Instagram here.
No, we'll listen to this for just a few seconds here, about half a minute, about this intro, because this is the kind of thing that we need to do.
And he says, I'm a beginner C# programmer.
Being able
I try to make simple apps like a calculator. I start writing the code and I get exhausted. I see your videos when you have lots of code. I try to make simple apps like a calculator. Instagram from a very nice gentleman in Ethiopia named Abbas Tofik. And he says, I'm a beginner C# programmer. I try to make simple apps like a calculator. I start writing the code and I get exhausted. I see your videos when you have lots of code, lots of classes. What's the secret? I get distracted. I get stuck. I try to fix it. I get more errors. I get stressed. I stop coding it. Please give me your advice. And I think that that's a really common thing. I think that that is generally getting overwhelmed. Overwhelmed with the solution, overwhelmed with all the things that we have to learn in tech. This happens to people who are new in their career and people like me who've been doing this for many years. What do you do when you're completely overwhelmed? Well, I've got a...
So, we'll stop it there because I want you to think about that. It's what do you do when you're overwhelmed? And he goes into, more feel good kind of, sit properly, find an area for your work. If you want to recline on the couch and type on the laptop, or whether you want to sit at a laptop, on a desktop in your office, upright in the proper chair, whatever it is that gets you into the idea that you are now productive and can concentrate. But he says about being deliberate. And I guess I saw the parallel when I watched that with event modeling, is that we're being very deliberate and we're saying that, you know what, I'm not working on anything unless I know how it's going to, shape up. And so this is what we want to do with event modeling, is make that a reality for ourselves so that we aren't distracted with so many things. We're always thinking, what Scott says, it's quite true, especially if you're new to programming. There's, a million JavaScript frameworks. The whole CSS side of things is crazy. On the back end, you have DevOps throwing you brand new tools, new things to help you with Kubernetes. You're starting to think like, well, I'll probably need Kubernetes. I'll probably need to, think about AWS or Azure, and there's the whole cloud thing. And you're jumping all over the place where you're really just trying to automate a system. And it's hard to organize that time, and you start to see where things go wrong, and you start to get the different departments in the company to have specializations, and all these things can get incredibly overwhelming. So I think one of the benefits of event modeling, like Scott says, is having that deliberate idea of where things go. And so as I'm pretending to be a new person right now, and I say, well, I want to make a to-do list. I have a dream of, making this little page that's going to allow me to do this. And we'll continue with our example, like I said, with our time tracking application. That's a little bit more, multiple user, more realistic example. But we want to get, the idea of a kata, something that's very simple to do. And if we write, a time tracking application or a to-do list application 1,000 times using event modeling, we'll really feel quite used to it. And just like Krzysztof has done with his with his Pomodoro application, that was more like a kata. He started to see the pattern of what do I do for the next slice? What do I do for the next slice? What are these patterns? So, Scott's little YouTube video is quite good for those people that are just out of maybe a code camp or out of university, and they get dumped into some company, and there's so many things already going on that it's just really hard to focus on getting work done. So as we do this with event modeling, this slice approach, and can I say that this button to add a new item works? Yes or no? Have I done everything in there that makes this a successful step in what the story of this application is? And so I guess it is kind of goal setting, like when you put things on your fridge that I want to retire one day, and I want to have this vacation house in Hawaii, and what do I need to do to get there? This is our little dream board of, I want this application. I want to paint the picture of what it will be like. I want to maybe learn programming by understanding what the end goal is. And by now, enough of us have used websites and apps on our phones that we can take screenshots and say that I want something like this, but I want it to do these other things. So I can, even as a layperson, say what I want. And it's not such a big stretch to talk about the information, which will give the whole thing a spine. And you could probably learn programming faster this way than you would otherwise. And this doesn't even need to involve event sourcing, although we'll show that it's a little bit faster to do event sourcing, just to not get distracted, especially for a beginner, with things like joins and all sorts of SQL stuff, etc. Say, no, just think of information sitting in files. Everyone knows what a file is. You can read these in a specific format and get things back, and notice that you get what you're set out to do done. Might not scale. Maybe it's this thing for one person is not going to work for two people, but that's your next challenge. You're still correct for one person, and you can ask yourself the question, well, how do I make this work for two people? Where does this have to be shared? And out of that need to do the next thing for your application, you can learn with a purpose. You're not just opening up a crap load of books to learn everything, like going back to school and having to finish 4-year degree. You're learning with a purpose to see exactly how the next piece of technology or approach or pattern or whatever solves that next piece. So, well, that's how we'll start with this single user application here. And I think Krzysztof is also made that same decision. The Pomodoro application is certainly for one user. So that was quite helpful for people to have an easy start on talking about that. So I guess I'll just put the item to be by bread, and that's it. And then event modeling says, well, what do I do next after that? Well, it looks like I don't have any validation criteria right now that would, cause me to make this not work. So I'm just going to say that I have, my item is stored somewhere. I'm not going to make an opinion on it, but it's stored somewhere as an event. Now notice I'm doing some cruddy stuff on purpose because it's compatible with CRUD. So create, update, delete, all these seemingly dumb things are okay because this is a dumb application. It literally is. I'm creating a to-do item. I'm not going to try to invent some domain-specific language for it. I'm just creating a to-do item. So that's how we mark success. We say created to-do item, and that item is to buy bread. And now, obviously, to wrap it all the way around is we actually see that this has gone away from here, and that somehow we have, whoa, that is large. what do we have here? 14. Okay, let's stick to 14. Perfect. Buy bread, right? And we don't have to stop here. We know that this information is something that is coming in. That's ugly. Let's try a different one. That's opacity. That's the one we want. And likewise, we have a list of our items. And we can probably think of our mental list of things that we display as to-do list. And in there we have first items, and there we have buy bread, and it's not done. Okay, that's a simple list. Of course, it's a list, so we switch that to green. And here we go. And so as per Scott Hanselman's safe place to think about what you're going to be doing and all that kind of stuff, this gives you that little structure and a place of purpose and an opinion. So now you know how to do one piece of this, and obviously we now need to be able to move. I think Rick was drawing something, but he stopped. He was adding some little arrows, which could have been useful, but hello, Rick. I noticed you snuck in earlier, but I was talking at the time. Good to have you here.
So, I wasn't sure if you wanted buttons or mouse. So.
Oh yeah, I changed my mind to not make it too complicated with dragging and dropping in HTML. If this is supposed to be.
I'll make a couple lame move buttons here.
Oh, that's okay. I can do it now. I mean, we're here now. So I can make. So obviously we have a way to finish something, which could be just this. And for now, we're just going to have. We're not going to be able to undo things. Let's just say we'll keep it simple for now. We'll just have one button to say that, hey, this thing's done. So the one thing that we probably want to do is add a little checkbox beside these things. So I'll make a little square that appears beside them. I'll just make it nothing in there. And I don't want any typing. So there we go. And if we check that off, then we can finish it. And so to show that user interaction, which is really nice to be able to say, hey, what does the person have to do? Well, they first have to check that box. And again, I'm not going to use anything fancy here. I'm just going to use lines to create a little check mark. And
so what's the purpose of the checkbox?
Just to say that, hey, I want to move this thing to done now.
Oh, I see. Right. You're not going to have any mouse where you can just click on the item.
I guess we can. Just how do you show that in the UI?
Just make it a different color.
I guess, yeah. Okay, so let's forget the checkboxes. That makes it easier. Let's give it a selection. Yeah, I'll just add a little. Whoops, that's a square for some reason. What's going on here? Okay, buy bread, and we don't need any surrounding stuff. We want some. Do we just make it darker? I guess. Let's just try that.
Just make a little drag and drop box that makes it darker around it.
Maybe we do. Yeah, maybe we will have a little bit of a outline. Very thin, and opacity is down to here. Maybe just, yeah, that's good. I think that'll do. So then we select that. So buy bread is selected. It's just maybe just give it an extra space here just to make it a little bit easier to show that And there we go. Buy bread. Okay, so we show that we can even say that from here to here, we don't do any state change or interaction with the system. It's just really our browser that's doing that. And oops, let's make sure we got an arrow here. Whoa, that's a large arrow. Why is that so large? Whatever, let's try this one. Okay, that's fine. I guess I just started doing that. Rick, you joined late, but I'm just trying to make things a little smaller so that they don't take up too much room, because we were using default giant fonts and things like that, which wasn't helping. Okay, so that's something we can follow, and now we can see the pieces that we need to build. And for someone that's starting out with programming, they won't be too overwhelmed. And once we have done that, we can hit this button, and that will create a command saying, finish my item. Align those things here. I guess we'll call finish task. That sounds very friendly. Buy bread. And we do that by clicking on this button at this point. Right. I'm wondering if there's a way to show that we clicked on here. I think I'm complicating things if I do that. So then we just store the fact, again, that we just finished something. Okay, and so finished task, buy bread, and that was successful because this intention was successful. And our next step is the next screen that we see, which is this, but with this view populating both of these things now. So this is an interesting way to do things. We can, I think we're just going to stop here and start coding just to show that we're done. But, buy bread. Thanks, Rick. And just delete that. Delete that. Thank you. And so we show that this is populating either the whole screen, or we can say that we have two lists on here in terms of the UI that are showing this. There we go. And so that should give us enough to do. So we have, if we're looking at this through event sourcing eyes, if you're learning event sourcing, we have two state transitions, two command handlers that we need to implement. And we have one read model that we're using to show the state of what things are done and what things are not done, which should be fairly easy. Now, in terms of what Scott Hanselman said, is we need that little safe place of not getting distracted by so many things. And the person that was writing in, they get overwhelmed just writing a calculator. And I think it's just the amount of technologies that we have at our disposal at any point. So having something like this, well, what's the first thing I have to do? I have kind of 5 states of this screen that I can go through. So the first thing I have to do is make my little to-do list, right? And so if I, oh gosh, I remember this screen sharing being a problem, but let's see.
So Adam.
Uh-huh.
So one thing, when do you want to, when's a good time to talk about, like, so language, like you've got, stuff, I got to create to-do items and to-do items and tasks and whatever. When you start noticing you're calling the same thing by different names.
Oh, like task and item?
Yeah. So
well, we can start to see if that becomes a problem. Maybe it doesn't.
Okay.
Maybe one of those things that gets people stuck in this loop of trying to, see where they're, where they're getting confused as to what to work on next is one of these issues of, hey, I'm not done yet. My names aren't correct. Maybe we can rename them later. Maybe the refactoring part of our IDE is something that a person can say, oh, this is why an IDE is good. And this is why I want to move away from Notepad and start using an
so
IDE.
I think that's a pretty good thing. If you had just implemented the first two screens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Add to do item, you got nice thing. Then later on, you decide, oh, I want to start calling these things tasks. There's nothing stopping you from just changing everything to tasks and keeping it consistent.
Yeah.
So that's fine. You don't have to model everything ahead of time.
Yeah, one of the things that watching the Hanselman video showed is that we want to be so smart and so advanced all the time, but I think it's really important to always have something that doesn't give barriers to entry and keep things incredibly simple for people. And I mean, all of the goodness out of domain-driven design and naming things and finding bounded contexts. And when you listen to that person trying to get into the industry and they can't even write a calculator application without getting distracted, and now you're going to tell them that, hey, you know what, let's nitpick here, and you're talking about to-do list items, and here you're talking about tasks. Maybe I did that on purpose just to show that, hey, when actually as I was drawing this in my design, my idea of it changed. I think of these as tasks because now I can see that I'm actually finishing things. I can put myself into some of these higher level events that we were talking about, where I need to say that the reason that this now makes sense is because I actually have this human level event called entered store and purchased bread. Left the store. Right. So this is maybe if I'm talking to the product owner and say, well, when are people going to be using this application, this web page, this website, this app? Oh, this is where it's being used. This is where I actually, at the end of the till, when the clerk is still ringing my items through, I opened up my little application and I moved these things over to the next thing, and then I left the store, and I know what state my system was in when I did that. I remember we talked about these levels of events, so this is helpful for a person that's starting out and gets some guidance to say that, oh yeah, when they're in the store, this should be easy to use.